Now, it's my particular pleasure this evening to introduce my colleague, Jonathan Mane-Wheoki, who I imagine a number of you may know. He's Te Papa's Director of Art and Collection Services, and he's been here in this role for 5 years. However, this evening is tinged with sadness because Jonathan is taking up the position as Professor at Fine Arts and Head of School at Elam at Auckland University in April. And so this is one of his last speaking engagements with Te Papa in his current role. However, and we will, of course, be bringing him back endlessly in all manner of guises. He won't be lost to us, but he will be lost as a colleague. One very nice thing, though, that I should let you know is that in many ways the culmination of his 5 years here will be crowned in April, early April, when we release the book Art at Te Papa, which is a rather glorious and beautiful set of essays and obviously wonderful illustrations of the collections that sit in this institution. And it's Jonathan's department and under Jonathan's guidance that book has been produced. So anyone who's interested in the visual arts, make sure that you know the book and see the book when it comes out in April. In terms of what you're going to be doing this evening, I can tell you a small personal story, and it perhaps gives you a sense of the enchantment of working at a place like Te Papa and with colleagues such as Jonathan. When the Constable exhibition was on 2.5 years ago, Jonathan was walking past my desk and I asked him a question about a work that I particularly liked in the exhibition. I then sat spellbound for 30 minutes where we traversed Constable to Turner, the English influence on the French Impressionists, and eventually somehow we ended up in Scottish ecclesiastical architecture. I don't think he's covering that tonight, but you never know, because he's a man of deep passion and he has many passions. But I do know that this link between the English artists, French Impressionism, is something that he's very currently engaged with thinking about, and it was my pleasure to sit there for 30 minutes and listen to it. I had 30 minutes, you're going to have about 40 minutes, so it's therefore in a certain knowledge of the pleasure that lies ahead of you this evening that I'm delighted to invite Jonathan, that Scheherazade of visual arts, up to the stage. Jonathan.
Kia ora, good evening, and thank you very much, Gisela, for that very gracious introduction. And a very warm welcome to everybody here. Turner, Constable and Monet carries an echo of an exhibition that was held about 5 years ago, curated by a great friend of mine, Dr. Catherine Loughnan, who is a curator, senior curator at the Art Gallery of Ontario. Her exhibition was called Turner Whistler Monet, and she very cleverly perceived that there were connections amongst those three artists, which she then explored in a huge blockbuster exhibition that was shown at the Tate, at the Musée d'Orsay, the Louvre, and at the Art Gallery of Ontario. So Turner, Constable, Monet, I almost want to say Turner Whistler Monet, but I'm sure if I make a mistake, you will be able to rectify that in your minds for me. Anyway, to begin, in a poll conducted by the National Gallery in London and the BBC Radio 4 Today programme in 2005, listeners to Radio 4 were invited to vote for what they considered to be the greatest painting in Britain. Top of the admittedly unscientific poll was The Fighting Téméraire, Tugged to Her Last Berth to be Broken Up by J.M.W. Turner, with 31,892 votes, which was 27% of the accepted votes cast. Dating from 1838, the painting depicts the noble hulk of the 98-gun ship Téméraire being towed from Sheerness to Rotherhithe following her decommissioning to be broken up. The Fighting Téméraire had played a distinguished role in Nelson's victory at the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805. Now, in an emotionally charged setting, the ship was about to be scrapped, and Turner's concern here is to evoke a sense of loss, the loss of history, heritage, memory, to lament the decline of British naval power. So we see her here, stripped of her rigging, appearing like a spectre, luminous in the rays of the setting sun and against the funereal blackness of the efficient little coal-fired paddle steamer that is towing her to an inglorious end. The painting marks the end of one era and the onset of another, the new industrial era, the age of steam. Turner died in 1851, and Britain's greatest painting entered the collections of the National Gallery, London, as part of the Turner bequest in 1856. Second place in the Radio 4 poll was The Hay Wain by John Constable, with 21,711 votes, or 18.38% of the accepted votes. That Constable's painting should take second place to Turner's in the greatest painting in Britain poll aligns with their relative standing during the artist's lifetimes. Although they were near contemporaries, Turner gained recognition much earlier than Constable. Turner was elected an Associate of the Royal Academy in 1799, when he was only 24, and a Royal Academician 3 years later. Constable became an Associate in 1819 at the age of 44, and a Royal Academician 10 years later. Constable died in 1837, 15 years before Turner. The Hay Wain was exhibited at the Royal Academy in 1821, where it enhanced the artist's reputation, but failed to find a buyer. Yet when it was exhibited in Paris in 1824, with other works by Constable, the painting was hugely admired. The way to this painting's positive reception in Paris had already been paved by a favourable review by a French critic and by the French Romantic artist Théodore Géricault, both of whom saw the painting at the Royal Academy exhibition in London in 1821, and also by the Parisian art dealer John Arrowsmith, who then began to import Constable's landscape paintings into France for sale. Constable was to receive more commissions from Arrowsmith than from any other single source, and the Constable Room was a popular feature of his establishment in Paris for a number of years. Another French dealer, Claude Schroth, also purchased Constable's paintings for sale in Paris. Between them, the two dealers sold more than 20 pictures by Constable. The painter's success in France is chronicled in a posthumous biography, Memoirs of the Life of John Constable, compiled by the English painter C.R. Leslie and published in 1843 with an expanded second edition in 1845. In May 1824, we read that Constable was preparing 7 small paintings for Paris. One of the largest, he wrote, is quite complete and is my best in sparkle with repose. Just love that description, sparkle in repose, because it's something that we can revisit when we come to look at and think about the Impressionist paintings. Shortly afterwards, Constable read in a newspaper, and I quote, a paragraph mentioning the arrival of my pictures in Paris. They have caused a stir, and the French critics are very angry with the artists for admiring them. There's a reason for this, that subject matters were arranged in a hierarchy with landscape actually in the bottom rung of the hierarchy. History painting, paintings of biblical or historical subjects were at the top. Landscape painting, still life, and even portraiture were fairly near the near the bottom. So that's why the critics were angry, because this new liking for landscape painting was really taking artists away from that very serious purpose of painting noble subjects. One of Constable's friends commented, "The French have been forcibly struck by them, and they have created a division in the school of landscape painters in France, the division between those who wanted to paint polished, enamelled representations of nature and those who wanted to paint in a more spontaneous way to produce fresh and vivid and lively looking images."